Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting, a special meeting of the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. I am the chair, Councilor Tariq Lucas. Please note this meeting is being both audio and video recorded. With me in the meeting tonight are committee members and Vice Chair, Councilor Randy Block, Councilor Julie Irish, Sean Roach, Jacob Silver, and Councilor Pam Wright and Brian Golden are on Zoom. Non-committee councilors with us in the room are Councilors Andrea Kelly, and on Zoom, Councilors Susan Albright and Julia Maliki. City staff present right now is Danielle Delaney from the clerk's office, and we are ready to begin. Oh boy. I don't have a copy of the agenda for me.
I gave it to you.
Yeah, I put it in my bag. Sorry.
You got it, one?
Yeah, I just need to. I got it here. We have one item on our agenda tonight. It is docket number 62-26, requesting a discussion and ordinance change to the city's overnight parking ban.
I think he's gonna present it.
Can I, folks, we have a meeting. Requesting a discussion and an ordinance change to the city's overnight parking ban. We are going to hear from the working group chair, former councilor Chris Markowitz, and second. But before we begin, I have one house cleaning item. Next Wednesday, we have another special committee meeting in the chamber for the Welcoming City Ordinance ICE discussion. So I hope everyone can attend that. We are going now to bring up former councilor Chris Markowitz. We've also been joined by Councilor Greenberg from the committee, and Councilor Pam Wright is now in the room.
Yeah, very good.
It's just how it looks.
No, we'll take them to sit here.
No, I'll be fine.
There's a special seat right there.
Yeah, I'll go sit next to them.
You can sit next to me. So, Councilor Markowitz, you are going to go through the report. Afterwards, committee members and non-committee members will have a chance to ask questions to the chair of the working group, Mr. Markowitz, and we will have a discussion. Anyone have any process questions before we begin? Councilor Greenberg?
Do we have copies of the report?
Yes, I can give you mine.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh,
Oh, you just have one. I share.
oh, I had two, so, okay, yeah.
Here's one here.
That person. I printed out the pages.
We've also been joined by Councilor Stephen Farrell, not on the committee, but always welcome. Mr. Markowitz,
Okay,
member.
can I introduce the members of the group that are on? So I'm Chris Markowitz, I'm the chair. Looking across, I see Mitch Fishman is on, a former counselor and member of the traffic council. Reading down here, I saw Peter Clapes. Can you scroll down a bit, Daniel, so you can see if anybody else is on Zoom? I think that's it. And in the room we have Mike Halley. And Howard's not here, and Richard can't make it. So I think that accounts for everyone. I assume everyone's had a chance to read the report, right? All 19 pages of text, and then 30 odd pages, 37 pages. I think the whole thing was 56 pages or something like that. Those appendices are important. Every one of those data sources was used during several of the discussions, and I think in your work going forward, you're going to want to reference that. And the committee, again, committee members are available to help you, find that or navigate that or source it. One other sidebar on that: Mike Halley did a lot of work on the heat maps, And I don't think we had a chance to talk to anybody in IT about it, but I think down the road there may be a way. I don't know if you put it on a server or figure out how to do it, but you might want to play around with that because you can't obviously slice and dice that data. You'll need, you need all the same Claude type facilities and so forth. But I think you might want to use that at some point in time. This is a long report. I was just going to step through it kind of page by page, and I don't know if you want to stop and ask questions in sections or you want to hold them until.
It's up to you. What's your preference?
I think we can stop along the way. I just want to make sure we can get through this. So if it gets to be a lot of questions, we'll have to decide to.
Periodic stops?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Coffee breaks, things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Wait, hold on for a second. Go back to Zoom. Danielle, at the bottom where, click share.
Share.
Yeah. The one on the bottom left. Nope. See where it says, nope. Go back.
Oh.
See report of the overnight.
Oh, okay.
Ban. Click on that and then hit share.
Thank you, sorry.
And for Danielle, once we get past this little intro, there's 13 sections here, so they're numbered on the left-hand side. So I can say, go to section 2, section 3, section 4, but shouldn't be too hard to scroll through that. So first thing I want to talk about is just we met. We talked about some of this in the June 17th kind of midway status report. We had 8 meetings where principally most of the group was there. I don't know that I think we had 8 people one time. I think we had 7 people one time. I think we had 6 people the majority of the times, but most of the group was able to attend most of the sessions. There's probably somewhere between 20 and 25 hours of actual meeting time just between the 7 of us. In addition to that, there were a number of discussions outside of the meetings, editing reports, providing data, just collecting things, which was much greater than the 20-odd hours. I don't know how many hours if we did it, but it wouldn't surprise me to know collectively there's over 100 hours in this. The reason I'm bringing this up is if you had to start from zero in this committee, I think, with where we were, you would have to use a lot of meetings to get to where we are. So I'm selling the report saying this is very much intended. It's a report where virtually everything we talked about is documented, whether or not there was big agreement, minimal agreement, whatever. But if it was a legitimate point to discuss, it's in here along with any attendant details to it. And we hope that this can kind of launch you forward into the next discussion. So read the report, really understand it, so you don't have to go back and drag up a lot of the things, just to kind of frame the discussion, if you will. So we hope that will work for you. I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the executive summary now. So we'll scroll down to that section. Okay. Hopefully people at home are able to look at this too, because again, there's a lot of text here. We had once other sidebar, unanimous versus unanimity versus general consensus comes in different flavors. Most things to get to unanimity and getting into the level of detail that we got into can be somewhat challenging. However, I would say a number of these questions, number of the material, there was general consensus or consensus with a couple of exceptions. So, it fairly represents, I think, what was said. So just kind of talking executive summary, these are general guidance. And again, some of this is a little bit of motherhoody, but feel free to stop me and I'll be happy to either answer the question, or if I can't answer it as well as I think it should be answered, I'll point to somebody on the committee, if that's okay with the group.
Working group,
to answer that question. So we wanted to establish clear guidance for exceptions to the winter overnight parking ban. Codify the expanded exceptions for residents with disabilities. Disabilities was a big focus for us in the work we did. It was talked about, I think, almost in every meeting, and it evolved quite a bit over the time that we did discuss it. Develop a system to provide overnight parking options for home health care aides, who we viewed as being very close to people who have disabilities. In other words, the same type of need. Adopt streamlined and clear mechanisms for requesting temporary exceptions. So this is not something that's well known, but the police can and do sometimes grant exceptions for people who have, their car is immovable, it's broken down. There are even, I think, cases where some people may have requested for, for people when they have a lot of out-of-town visitors and so on and so forth. Those things are rarely given, but there is today kind of an informal process to do that. Implement our changes as trials. So, it's very dependent. An enormous success factor in this is going to be measuring the data and collecting data. And that's going to take a level of effort from, I think, a variety of city departments to do that. But we spent a lot of time talking about measurement criteria and just the importance of collecting valid data in order to, when you get on the back side of this trial, to really, or even as you're substantially in the trial, to be able to evaluate things how things are working. You may even want at some point in time to modify the trial in process. There are ways to do that. Establish and enforce policies that mitigate or any observed or anticipated harms. So the word harms is a difficult word, but we talked a lot about what we refer to as need. So once you get past folks who have disabilities and potentially a caregiver for them, there's this big group of people who don't have enough parking per their situation. It could be everything from someone who generally does not have a parking space to someone who just has too many cars for the space that they do have. So we looked at that whole spectrum of things, and obviously their needs are different, and some of the remedies available to them could be different. Lastly, and I think this is very important, learn from other communities. So you'll see in the appendices, we did gather data on what other cities and towns that abut us are doing or not doing, and we think that can be useful. Even picking up the phone and calling some of the electeds or DPW type people in these other cities and towns might help. It also might help clarify things that are in our report. You may want to get further into detail. We had wide, but not unanimous consensus, and I know some people in the group will pick at these words a little more than others, but we wanted to expand and enhance the municipal overnight parking program. So this has to do with using the resource that already exists. It's the municipal parking lots. It could be expanded to include things like the Ed Center, the libraries, potentially even school parking lots. And one of our members discovered and then did more research on angle spots. A lot of angle spots are available as inventory for parking that is from the ban. Yep.
Did you look at parks also?
We did.
Okay.
We did. I don't think we made a strong recommendation on parks, but we did consider that. Yeah. So the working group considered aspects of, we didn't reach unanimous consent, but there were several people who did support this, just expand the overnight parking beyond the municipal lots into actually using the streets. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail with what you might do or how you might think about that. And also reducing the calendar of the ban. So that, I believe, the way we wrote the recommendation was to consider just shortening it to 2 months, just straight up. Leave everything in place if you want, and just shorten the ban to 2 months. This is an element, it's kind of buried in here, but each trial element carries either automatic expiration or a mandatory schedule of a public evaluation. So we didn't want to see this into like perpetuity or just left hanging out. You should set a sunset date, and it might make sense even to have check-ins on measurement, see how your data collection and all that type of thing is going. Okay, that's kind of the overview. Any questions on that? Comments? Everybody's good?
Crickets.
Crickets. Did you read this in one sitting? Did you have to read it like
Took me to.
Okay, let's talk about the ordinance itself. So this is pretty interesting, and there's a lot of detail in the back on this, but it appears, and it's very likely that this whole ordinance had its genesis more in a bureaucratic deduction, as opposed to something that was actually pre-planned. I think the research showed that there was as cars became more of a thing, when we abandoned horses and so forth, the government, federal government, promulgated guidelines on safety and parking and all this type of stuff. And you can read the details. It just goes on and on. But essentially, this boiled down to Newton having its own overnight parking restriction, which at one time was complete. There was no exception. It ran the entire the entire year. Excuse me, like Brookline. And then eventually it started getting modified. Mike found an article from the 1934 Newton newspaper, which talks about the aldermen discussing this and starting to talk about snow and so on and so forth. But the idea that this was like a discrete act where they did something probably isn't true. It evolved over time, and it didn't necessarily start where it wound up. So just kind of interesting background. Councilor, right, sorry, it's your job. Go ahead.
So Newton says that you can't, parking between 2 and 6, but more than 1 hour.
Yeah.
So, which is, from a police standpoint, it's kind of hard to enforce, I would think, because you got to go through twice. Do the neighboring communities that have a winter parking ban, do they just say from 2 to 6, or do they also have, you have to, if you're there during those times for more than an hour?
Can you give a detailed answer? Should we refer to the report?
Sure,
You'd have to look at the table, but
sure. Every place that has the ban in Massachusetts and essentially across the country coming from this template that the federal government has the exception. And in fact, the Massachusetts exception has a weird wording like, emergency, of, if you search on that, you'll find every community in Massachusetts that took the Massachusetts template. So every one of them has that exception. Going back to Los Angeles in 1924, which was the standard, they all had like half hour or 1 hour. They vary it, and they vary the beginning and end. They all have the exception.
Do you know why?
You have to find out why Los Angeles had it before 1924. That's as far as I could find.
it probably just evolved from, it came down through some governing body and was just adopted broadly. Remember, there weren't a lot of cars back then. Cars were rare. People were still using horses and wagons and things like that.
And I would just add that at the time, even in Boston, you couldn't, it was a half hour loading and unloading parking all day at the time because automobiles were basically viewed as a nuisance that were time and traffic.
Yeah, so at some point you may you may look at tickets and you'll find out that a lot of the tickets are written at like 2 o'clock, which technically isn't the time that the violation occurs. So it may be some systemic or other reason why that's done. We kind of talked about how that may have happened. We don't know exactly, but it's interesting to look at that too. So, all right, the ballot question. Again, everybody knows it was a close election, and that was really the genesis of considering doing a trial. We did not, and we understood that our purpose here is not to rewrite the ban, to overturn the ban, but really just to say, is there an opportunity to learn more about what would happen if we did release the restriction or ease the restriction? What would be the impact? So the charge from it, as we go into the next section here, the committee's charge, you probably can scroll down to a little more, Daniel. The charge was actually pretty broad. So we spent a lot of our time, I think, trying to developing the scope to do this. And, we'll talk, this will come up over and over again. But essentially, the spirit of it was to do a trial and try and keep some of the other, maybe bigger topics on the side, even though they would come up. Like at one point, and I digress a bit, but at one point we did talk about the fact that, it would be interesting to see if the city could just take a holistic approach here, evaluate the entire parking situation for the city. That might include transportation. That's a significant undertaking. Priority-wise, I don't know if that would fit. You'd have to get the mayor and everybody involved in this. And I don't know we don't know how that would set in terms of priorities, but we did talk about it. We did say, geez, maybe this whole thing ought to just step back and look at the whole thing. So as councilors, you can consider that. Also within the committee's charge, kind of continuing on, we wanted to make sure that, safety is always number one, right? But the other thing is this has to be reasonably easy to enforce and very importantly, have something to implement by December 1st. So you don't miss this first winter that's coming up after this. So be able to do something to start testing some of these trials and see what happens. That was our understanding of the charge.
Yeah, that's copied and paste from basically what we came up back in April.
Points of agreement. So this is section number 3. And again, when I say agreement, it's like generally speaking, we were of this mindset. If you talk to any individual group member, they may give you some nuances or have an issue here and there. But generally speaking, we acknowledge that the voters chose not to repeal the overnight winter barking ban. It's pretty much a fact. We acknowledge that the ban imposes costs, and that changes to the ban could alleviate some of them. So this is everything as simple as just a parking ticket to people who may have to spend a lot of money to secure rental parking or whatever. And we acknowledge there could be negative impacts as well. You could have situations where places do get parked up or vehicles are stored and so on and so forth. So it's not a perfect, solve all your problems, don't create any problems type of thing. And I think we generally agreed on that. Yeah, section 4, the approach. So as we said before, there were a range of views. And we did attempt very much to bring those out rather than try to obscure them. We talked about section 5, we talked about the origins of the ordinance. Let's talk about section 6 here. So the affected residents, this is pretty important. So first of all, residents with disabilities who lack and need usable parking at home. The procedure today is essentially there's a lot of history on this as well, but there is actually no formal ordinance that requires an accommodation for people with disabilities. The way it's handled now is Traffic Council gets a petition for a disabled parking space, and it's heard through Traffic Council, and then that space is voted, not voted, and that's it. That's kind of what the approach is today. We spent a lot of time going, and we'll get into the detail of it. We spent a lot of time talking about the possibilities and the options here. Again, very strong support to do something formal here and make this a more structured standard, and even to the extent of opening it all the way up. But had a lot of support from the group. Residents who have temporary circumstances.
Are you gonna go and say what Brookline does for this? Because they have this program. Are you gonna go over that?
I don't know that we can tell you every single thing. Again, there is Brookline information in here. You can get a pass in Brookline, for example, through the police department. But how all the machinations of it, we'll come back to that, okay?
If I may,
Yeah.
it is in the detailed choices, that information.
Yeah, if you read the report, you'd see in the options, there's different, I think there's 4 different options for this one. And the other communities, what we know about them is also in the appendix. So there's a large table in there for that. So temporary circumstances, again, my car won't start, I'm having this big party, other types of things. So that's another group of people. And then finally, the big group, which is residents who do not have off-street parking, or it's less than their household needs. So that can be everything from, you don't have a parking space at all, you live in a condo and there's no driveway or whatever, to everything up to including we have, 3 generations living in a house and 2 floors, and we've got 4 cars, and we only have 2 parking spaces. So we did look and think about all of that. One other item on the last paragraph in the affected residents, something to pay attention to. We did look at parking tickets. Some of this, I think, came from data that the Yes campaign collected, and was further expanded. And you can read the numbers. What's interesting here is that 141. This happened over 3 years. 141 vehicles received 5 or more tickets over 2 years, and 1 vehicle got 31 citations over 2 years. Now, either that was how they chose to secure overnight parking. When the fines were lower, you could do that, I suppose, or if you have a lot of means and you don't care. But it's just interesting when you look at where this happened and how often it happened to kind of determine your need.
But isn't most of these citations complaint driven? So
It can be, but you can also get a ticket just if the cops ticket you.
Yeah, if you look at the
I mean,
ticket
they're not
data,
all-
you'll see at times like there are streets. Hang on, Peter. There are streets that everybody in the area that may have been complaint driven, but then it spreads out. So I think you got both. You're the ticket guy.
It's actually mandatory enforcement, so per the general orders of the Newton Police Department, they're required to enforce this ordinance, and the Newton Police came to one of our working group meetings and, expressed that exact point, which is that they actually have to drive around. Each sector car has to drive around its, given sector and find cars that are actively violating the ordinance, regardless of complaints.
And there's also, I believe,
Hold on, Councilor Greenberg, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, you can finish.
I was going to add on what Peter said. There's also, we understood, I don't know how rigid it is, but there is, in effect, a quota system at times, or historically has been a quota at times, for whatever reason.
Just to go back to affected residents, is there any discussion about residents who are required to have an employer vehicle?
We didn't talk specifically about, if you're saying things like, I'm Joe the painter, and I've got my commercial vehicle.
Or they work for a company where they're required to have a vehicle from the company, but they don't have a spot on their property.
They would fall into the category of somebody needs a
Okay.
spot, doesn't have
All
it.
right.
Yeah. But the commercial vehicle thing, actually, we didn't get into. And I believe they're not allowed to anyway. But that's something else that as you turn this over, you'll have to account for that as well.
Yeah, okay.
Can I
Yeah, go ahead.
There's one case where we had discussed that if you lived in public housing and you were assigned a space and then you actually needed a car for work, we discussed it. It's not even in the report, but we really hit a pretty wide range of people's needs. I think it is they're all ones that once you get down to actual details, I hope you'll hear from these people.
Yeah, what this is going to come down to is if you use the heat maps and you look at where the density is, you look at where the tickets are, you look at all these types of things, you're going to see if you're going to do something off street, and municipal lots don't suffice. This is where you're going to be looking for off street type relief. And on-street type relief, and then trying to figure out where exactly that is. We intentionally did not go there. We hope to give you enough criteria about places not to go, for example, and places that might be opportune. But you're going to have to kind of, drill through that. And I do think you're going to have to also talk to, parking, traffic, and the police about areas that may be opportune. And likewise may not be opportune just because you don't know current solution. I think the example would be, they're going to build they're going to modify the Newtonville train station. That's going to take some level of parking spaces away. So something that you might say, hey, we got spaces on Washington Street. Maybe you don't have them now. I actually don't know where those spaces are going to go. But
Neither do I.
yeah, but
No one knows. Well, that's a story for another day.
well, again, but this shows you are working. Even despite the report, you are still working with a moving target. So sooner to do something and understand what happens rather than wait to do something later, I guess. Scope of review. So again, we talked about this a couple times. Newton's traffic, the TPRs, Newton's traffic parking regulation. I'm sure you've all looked at that. I think it's only 250 pages.
249.
249.
And growing every month.
Right. Yeah. I won't say anything about the traffic council. They're great people. It's just I see work for them down the road.
You do realize Randy and I serve on the traffic council.
So
be careful. Be careful what you say about
I'm thinking of Mr. Cozens, who has no choice but to be there every time, and Captain Divine. So I'm going to read some text out of this.
What section are you in?
We're still under scope of review, paragraph 2. The working group decided early on where to focus its attention for the following reasons. Some places already embody deliberate parking policies that a trial would confound rather than inform. Village centers and commercial districts, parcels zoned without parking minimums, that's like a VCOD. Areas near large housing complex whose approvals set their own parking terms, so the special permit, there would be, parking minimums would be addressed. Locations governed by existing rules, such as resident permit zones. There's also areas that deserve careful, separate treatment. The streets near college campuses and streets that might be candidates for future bike lanes. I think that if you put they cannot coexist. So if it's a bike lane, there's no accessible parking space that can be put there. If there's an accessible parking space there, you can't have a bike lane. So there's got to be some coordination with the plans for, for the bike network that has been evolving for some years here. I think you know about that. That's a Jen, Miss Jen Martin thing. She does chapter and verse on that.
Real quick, did she attend any of the working group meetings?
I spoke with her separately
Okay,
one
alright.
time, just to kind of get some rules and so
Okay.
forth. Didn't have any, didn't ask her for opinions or anything like that.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm going to move now into the range of options. And this is basically, let's go over the high level. Parking for residents with disabilities, that's 8.1. Temporary exceptions, expanding the municipal program, and expanding the overnight program into streets. So basically 4, and then adjusting the ban duration. Every one of these, at one point in time, we had kind of taken, when we started this, I didn't want to take a vote because I wanted to make sure that we could get every opinion in here. However, there were times when I would say we were leaning more towards one of these options. And over time, we backed up and we said, no, let's just bring them all back in and show you all the options we discussed. So any member of the group would be happy to tell you if they got a particular one that they like or don't like for whatever reason. And that's certainly available to you, not just tonight, but at any point in time if you want to reach out to people. So let's start with the disability one, which is 8.1. So options: maintain the status quo, which again today is you call the police, you talk to the ADA coordinator, you wind up in traffic council, and you get either a space or you get a temporary waiver issued by the police, which is documented in a book. They actually have a book, they write it down, and the police know that parking is approved. You move the primary decision to the city's ADA coordinator. So the key change here is now the police have a lesser role. They would still obviously have to have some safety look at this, but the ADA coordinator would basically be making that determination. Just option 3, automatically exempt marked accessible parking spaces from the ban. Okay, that would be in addition to number 2. Number 4 is issue an overnight street parking permit or exemption tracked by the police department to any resident with a state disability placard or plate. So what you can see is these are gradually getting more and more open as we move through it. 1, maintaining status quo. Now here you are saying that any resident who has a state issued, a valid disability placard is okay. And then all the way up to just exempt everybody who's got a disability placard and no application, just automatic. You got a placard, you can park pretty much anywhere. Well, I guess they could be parking close to their residence, but in theory they could park anywhere if it was open up that much. Yeah, well, make sure I'm not overstating something. Questions on that? Now there is, again, if you've read the report, I believe it's Appendix 4, one of us drafted an ordinance, or ordinance-like language, that was vetted, it was discussed, there were some edits made to it. We know that if this comes to pass, you will have to work with Mr. Temple and Ms. Giuliani and others in the legal department. So it's not like this wording is expected to carry through verbatim, but what it does do is highlight kind of the main points. So maybe we should just take a to do this.
What page?
It's Appendix
Appendix
4,
4,
which is
37.
Thank you for having page numbers on here.
never understood people that don't put page numbers and dates on things. It's just the dates is the big thing. So everything changes. So you'll see though, I think Peter originally drafted this and Jeannie Fairley worked on it as well. And I think we kind of left it as
There it is.
everybody was kind of okay with this at the end. And you can scroll down just a little bit, Daniel, please. Go all the way down. Just keep going. Oh, there we go. So disability exception. I mean, the key thing with this, without reading every word, is that the key words upon need, demonstration need of a reasonable accommodation, and the police consider the following factors. They more or less have to, in this situation, I don't want to say they're bound to do it, but they pretty much would have to do it. And if they can't, they don't want to do it, they'd have to give a reason. The obvious reason would probably be some safety related thing. You just can't have a space there. It's a bus stop or something. I don't know. something like that. But again, you can get the key tenets of what will go into whatever ordinance, and you will need, if you want to do this, you will need to actually create an ordinance, and the group was unanimous in saying you should take that formal step.
You mean this draft language?
Well,
If you implement an ordinance for the disability exception, you need to implement an ordinance for the disability exception. You need to actually craft something that doesn't exist today.
Is this draft for number 2?
correct.
Okay.
Did someone else raise their hand?
I did, yeah.
Councilor
So,
Sloper?
am I right in stating that at this point, we do not know whether our limitations on, we do not know whether our restrictions on disability parking are compliant with Massachusetts or?
I'm glad you asked that question. You saved a jump there. So,
Sorry. If I'm
no,
jumping
it's
ahead,
a very important
that up
question. It's a very important question. This might go back to something that Councilor Wright said. So, other communities, so the restriction actually includes words like time-based. The law uses the word time-based. Our law department, not necessarily the ones who are there now, but as it has been passed down, has interpreted the ban that we have in effect as not being time-based. Because there's no mention of, there's mention of hours and so forth, but they don't interpret as time-based. We recommend that you do go back to council, take a look, and even go so far as to contact the state and just make sure that we're okay here. Not trying to stir up the pot or whatever, but if we're doing this, we may as well make sure we're on solid ground. So that is part of the recommendation.
So what you mean is the accessible placard, or that would grant you a waiver to a parking meter, but not to the overnight parking ban.
Yeah, right now.
Right now, yeah, right now.
Right now.
Council, if I may, the reason that this came up was Watertown, they altered their ban and to be shortened and open up municipal lots, but in their page, they state clearly that their interpretation of state law is that because of that thing that Councilor Wright mentioned is time-based, and therefore it is that because of the time-based, then persons with disabilities with the placards or plates are exempt. So Newton and Watertown have a different interpretation, and it should be clarified before you go.
Lawyers, you mean lawyers disagree?
No, it's
okay,
it's just how it's interpreted, but Mr. Howley's correct. It's you got two different interpretations. One law department says this, one law department says that. And I don't know if we found out when we looked at the other cities and towns, you probably find a lot of them accept this as actually not being a time-based restriction.
Hold on for a second.
Yep.
I know Ginny Fairley raised her hand, and I see Councilor Golden
Okay.
raise his hand. Ms. Fairley, are you able to unmute on your own? I think she's out.
I didn't see her.
She's here.
Yeah, can you do unmute? There you go. All right, go ahead, Ms. Fairley. You should be able to unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things, but Brookline may not have said it that way, but they also, for their whole year, all the person has to do is put up the placard and park overnight. It is true that anytime there's a time thing, like no more than 1 hour, no more than 2 hours, or 2-hour parking, anybody on any street of the whole city and pretty much the whole state with a disability, valid disability placard or plate can park there. So that's the interpretation. And this in this actual ordinance says more than 1 hour, so it is based on that. And so many cities and towns they may not write it into their ordinance. They're just accepting that means the disability placard and plate are allowed to be put up, and that's it. And they're on the street. And I talked specifically to the ADA coordinator in Brookline, and that is what is, and it's also, I believe they did mention it in their ordinance. So this sample ordinance in the packet, in the report, is really more like number 2 or number 3. What we're really looking at is both that ruling, and maybe the Mass Office on Disability can give that, although they don't necessarily give official legal advice, might be DLC or the Attorney General. But it is something that we're looking at that without applying to the ADA coordinator or the police, that they would just, and it won't be that many people. It's just people who really don't have any place to park. And they really have to have something out front, would put their placard up and they would park there. It doesn't need an accessible space per se, just that they would put the placard up and it would be recognized by the police and they would not get a ticket.
That's an important point that Ms. Fairley made too. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have an ADA space. You can just park.
Okay,
Makes it simple.
I also see Counselor Albright with your hand up. Are you able to unmute? If you are, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm wondering, did you talk about any of these options with the police department to see how they react to them, to enforcement? I'm particularly thinking about, well, this one, but also when you get to it later, the trial, the potential trials. Do you know what the police would say about them?
Yes and no. There was some discussion with Captain Devine about this early on. We didn't get an absolute reaction as to whether or not he would, support this, or whether the police would support this or not. I want to feather that into something else. We did ask, again, given the time frame we had to work with, by the time we had a full report ready to go, we did talk to COO Morse about meeting with not just him, but Captain Devine, Mr. Kozes, everyone who would have kind of a stake in this, stakeholder. That is still work to be done. We had hoped that they'd be able to make this meeting tonight, but again, I think everybody's on vacation. That's really kind of the issue. But you need to go through that step in order to implement this report. Any part of this report, you will have to vet it, obviously, with the people who will actually do the implementation. And I think, and again, Ms. Fairley's on. I think this notion of, particularly with respect to the disability exception, I think this is an old kind of ask. It's always been out there. It's just never had the opportunity to kind of get pushed. And I wish I could see Ms. Fairley's face, but it's never been taken to this level now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The police are going to want safety. That's their number one thing. And after that.
Yeah, this is a great one. The only other question I have so far is that you talked about earlier, you mentioned shortening the ban to 2 months. So it sounds to me like this is not a one from call. You could do both things at the same time. You could have a trial and shorten it for everybody for 2 months. Am I thinking about this the right way?
We did not come to a point where we said you would do. We didn't recommend that you do that conjunctively. You could do that. Again, there are other people in the group may look at me and say, "What are you saying?" But I think this is really on the council to decide how you want to implement these things. What we've done is tee up all the options, give you as much information as we can about the pros and the cons. After that, you're getting into everybody's personal opinion, I think, as to whether or not to do it. If I, for example, didn't think the 2-month ban proved anything, but there are people who think it's a good idea. They'll even go back to the COVID, situation, in 2020 and 2021. Those are all relevant facts, though. I think that anybody who's considering this should entertain.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
We want to go back to section.
Yeah, we can go back to 8.2.
Page 9.
Any other questions on that part of the disability? I'm going to lump in here. Hope I'm not running out of order here, but I'm going to lump in also. Let me just finish the sentence. We're also going to put caregivers in here as well. So an accommodation for them. So this is like you've had major surgery and you need someone there, and there is no available, even though they're not a Newton resident, for example, but they need to be there overnight, and there is no parking lot nearby, all those types of things that we would support them also being covered by this type of exemption.
Councilor.
So so if they have a placard, that seems pretty easy. If they don't, who's making that decision? you know, they had heart surgery, open heart surgery, you need to take it easy for 2 months. Do they need a letter from their doctor? Or, you know, anybody can go in and say whatever they want. Are you suggesting they have to have proof? I mean, if someone broke their leg, you can see. But there's other things
Well,
that,
the process right now would be for them to get a placard,
okay,
That's the structure.
okay?
okay. And then is the placard with the state or the city?
State R&B,
Okay,
yeah. And that's the validation,
okay.
okay? That's the premise behind it, right?
I don't think for a temporary disability, one would be getting a placard.
You
if I
can.
understood.
No, yes, you can.
I know you can, but I'm not sure that that's the process that we're recommending here. We're not recommending that a placard be the only way that somebody could get an exemption. That's at least not the way the ordinance that I drafted.
We didn't use those words, all right? We would not prohibit that, okay? But that's the most straightforward, you've got a pre-approval in place when you do that.
And then
Again, as you work, I keep saying this because this is important. You need to work through these details, okay? This is not put water on it and implement. You're gonna have to do some work here. What this report does is set it up for you and say, here, we're giving you a baton, you know, and you gotta start running in place, catch this thing, because you've got to make December 1st. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to try to build it, it's.
Oh, yeah, no, like I said, a placard is easy because someone else verified that information is correct versus, you know, who's gonna be doing it? Is it the police doing it or who's gonna determine? If you don't have a placard, you know, do you bring in a note from your doctor?
This is something you can put in the ordinance to fail safe it, if you will. You can write into the ordinance in addition to the placard, if extenuating circumstances, you know, then follow the process that's in place, which is to contact the ADA coordinator and the police. And I don't think you would have a problem with the accommodation, but you can codify that.
Well, I'm worried more people doing it that don't need it.
Well, you still have documentation
Mhm.
that's required, that basically same kind of documentation that you submit to the RMV to get a placard, whether it's temporary or permanent.
You know, and you open the door to something else. No matter what of these trials, a number of these trials, if you do that, you always run the risk of somebody gaming the system. We didn't spend a lot of time worrying about that. You know, we said it's a de minimis type of thing, hopefully. But we certainly were aware of it, but we didn't beat that up. And I can think of 3 or 4 ways you can manipulate a placard, but it's like, you know, you give a placard to somebody who's in town for, you know,
You can.
for a bar mitzvah or first communion or something like that. Yeah.
Not always. Can I just say something on the disability placard? Because I know someone in my family has one. And
And they live in Brookline.
they live in Brookline. And their photo is on it. However, the RMV can issue a sleeve that you can put on the placard so it blocks off the person's face and perhaps name, maybe. So so the police or whoever, someone walking by would see the placard on a car, and in theory, it could not be the owner of that car's placard. Or you see where I'm getting at? Like that placard could go on my car, which has happened before, not to overnight parking, but for other reasons, valid reasons. But yeah. So anyways, let's
Okay.
continue. Let's go through. Yeah.
So
I was just gonna mention,
Yeah.
this is, through all of this, one of the reasons that we talk about trial is to find out.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what like I keep saying, you got to get into the weeds a little bit. You got to try something. You know, thinking you're going to put a horseshoe right on the thing the first time is probably, you know, you're going to learn, even with the parking lots, you're going to find stuff out, I think.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
do you want to go to the parking lots?
Yeah.
Or do you want temporary?
Well, temporary exceptions, again, right now, the process is you call the police and you ask for an accommodation. The ordinance there actually is support for this somewhere in the ordinance. I know when I AI'd and I even found something for financial hardship. I couldn't trace it back, but there is other stuff out there on this. But in general.
Can I just stop you real quick? It's on the police department traffic webpage where it talks about contacting the police if for any special
I
consideration.
knew it was out there. I just couldn't. I did a crawl and I
Yeah.
found it. And I said, I know it's out there. I couldn't get the source at the time. So back to temporary exceptions. So the recommendation here, maintain the status quo, publish and communicate the current practice. So this is actually significant because I don't know how many people actually knew you could call the police and ask for a temporary waiver here. And that might do a lot in itself. They also create a lot more traffic in terms of people asking for this. And finally, go ahead and codify it and actually document a streamlined process and say what's required. If you want to have overnight extra parking because you've got some family event or you have a disabled vehicle or something like that, just enumerate it specifically. And I think our support is generally to codify this type of material so that there's equal treatment, and also that whoever is sitting in the chair of the police or any other department at a point in time doesn't have to make it up or rely on institutional memory or things like that. Okay, temporary municipal overnight parking lot.
This is 8.3.
What?
You're on.
I am on 8.3, yes. So we have in the appendix, you'll see the inventory of municipal parking lots. You'll see how many are used, how many permits are used there. Those permits are easy to get right now. They don't cost anything. They're generally given to you. The law actually says, and I think Michael knows this.
This is what you.
Yeah.
Okay. Appendix 5, page 38.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Sure.
For
those who want to read along.
There actually is a process in place that says you have to kind of prove that you need this parking space, somebody's going to come out, verify it, all that type of stuff. We don't do that. We would never recommend you do that. But it's just to know it's out there. So again.
But, so, we're getting more buildings being built without parking or with very limited parking. So you're saying they can go and request this too, in those lots?
Yes. The widest option here would be, I think it's water template that you just park in the lot. You can be from Newton and park in it. Okay, but that's your range of options. See, the thing that's interesting, what?
I don't know if you have to be a resident, but I don't think they check.
I don't think they check. Yeah, that's really what it is. I want to make sure I don't say anything that's not factually correct. So feel free to grab my ear or whatever. Nothing else but my ear. But the real issue here is this is a very interesting thing. So how many people would actually use this? Now, segueing off this, you'll notice that there are heat maps with walking distance. We spent a lot of time talking about walking distance. And at one point, Mr. Halley, I think he permutated this thing like 6 ways to Sunday, but it was real interesting. So we add this. And the bottom line being, we could cover a significant part. If you really opened it up, you could cover a significant part of the city. This would seem to be fairly easy relief. You already have parking lots. You can expand that to use things like the Ed Center. You could probably even use school lots under, with controls. Did you ever talk to
Yeah.
Superintendent?
Go ahead and finish up with this, and I'll.
It's something like I'm getting into the weeds a little bit, but even in a school parking lot, let's say Burr School has 50 spaces. You don't have to make all 50 available. You can make 20 spaces available, and the rules are tough. You got to be out of there at 6 a.m. when it's a 2 to 6. You can enter in the evening, but you got to be out there by 6 or you get towed. That's probably the most severe of them. But there are even, there are other options. The annual parking lots, which I think are documented in here, are already available. So there's resources out there that people are not aware of that they could use. And depending where they live in the city, this could provide a lot of relief. Without really not doing much more other than advertising it and issuing the permits.
So, 2 questions. If we were to add more city-owned parking lots not up on Appendix 5, does that require a change in the ordinance? If you don't know, that's fine.
I'm not trying to understand the question.
You need an ordinance to expand the number of parking lots.
No, of course not.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But the angle spaces have to be enumerated, right?
Yeah. So there are 2 options. 19200 is the ordinance that has the municipal parking.
Okay. So, yeah.
It does not actually enumerate what the municipal lots are. even the ones that exist right now. So if anything, it's an edit to that, to expand, to say it now includes X, Y, and Z. There is another ordinance, which is 19175C, that added angle parking to that inventory. It is enumerated, but it can go through traffic council. So it's a TPR, the list is in the TPR.
Oh,
So if you wanted to say add Albemarle tomorrow, it's a traffic council item, not a city council item.
the way how it's written.
And the only one is off Peggy Square. That lot, there's a bunch of, the ordinance was actually clarified in some year to say angle parking means also perpendicular parking because they're very stickler. So that's an angle. Apparently 90 degrees is
That's a
also
90-degree angle.
0 is not.
Did
So,
you notice?
No, I just got my act with the,
Yeah, so-
with the dash.
Hold on, Mr. Halley, go ahead.
So you could add Albemarle, for instance, which being from that part of town, I would say, probably is a pretty reasonable place to put an inventory. But it's easy to do just by going through traffic council to have that. You don't have to go through city council.
Okay.
That's the one thing that.
For the angled parking only.
Not for the municipal.
Yeah.
Including for
So you mean on Chestnut Street in Upper Falls?
Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
Is that Chestnut or is that Oaks? That's Chestnut
25
by that,
spots
by that office building?
there.
Okay.
By the new spray park, actually.
The other side.
Across the street.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet. The other thing I want to say is because Mr. Markowitz brought up school parking lots and asked me if I had any conversations with Dr. Nolan, and I have. The issue with school parking lots, including the Ed Center, is that what happens if it snows? I'm not talking about a snow emergency. I'm talking about that anywhere from an inch to 5 inches in snow, which is plowable, which you need to get a plow in there to clear it. How does the plow operate and remove snow when cars are parked with a permit? That is the challenge for school parking lots.
And I had a one-off actually with Councilor Lucas about this. Yeah, I said, this is an example again of you can get something, but not everything. So you may have to say any plow, tell the people who are doing this, if it snows, you can't park there. So it's certainly not a perfect solution for you, but depending on how many days it snows in any given year, you might be covered by, that. But again, it shows the limitations of some of this.
Yeah, so I will ask, not now, but if the committee or non-committee members could come up with any possible solutions for school parking lots other than if it snows, you can't park here.
But that would even be one where you try one, just so you don't have the problem pervasively. You pick one,
I have to sell that to Dr. Nolan.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you also have to get the
It's about
council.
the plow.
what?
It's about the plow.
Exactly, making sure the
But that's not
teachers.
actually Dr. Nolan, that's gonna be a DPW.
I know, but she's concerned about staff not being able
I've
to
talked
park.
with him for years, and this is Counselor Albright, but we'll all come back when you come to committee on this.
Where was I?
8:3.
43.
There is a map that
Oh.
shows the effectiveness of that if you want to see.
What?
Of
Jeannie had
Gene had it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Ms. Fairley.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say that I believe even with all the 15 municipal parking lots, if there is a snow emergency, you can't park there either.
That's right.
Right.
So
Right.
it's the same, it's gonna happen no matter what. Basically, people scramble for the snow emergency, but that's only hasn't been very many times a season. So it holds for the school and it holds for all allowable municipal parking lots right now.
I think
Just
we had,
wanted to clarify that.
I think we had either 4 or 5 days worth of snow emergencies this past winter. I think it was like 2 and 2 or 2 and 3 or something.
But then I think it's for 72 hours too, isn't
I couldn't remember.
it? So it's-
Yeah, I don't
so
know,
it's
but
not just
it was
days.
a handful of days or hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which the snow emergency was in effect. Anyways, let's continue.
All right.
Well, oh, Mr. Cleves.
Thank you. Just relevant to the municipal parking lot data, what I'd like to add is that the committee also requested and then subsequently reviewed the current permits that were pulled for the last, I believe, year for use of the municipal parking lots. And despite the municipal parking lots sort of being well promulgated throughout the city, and the program rather being well promulgated throughout the city, only about 1% of Newton households that sort of were eligible, if you will, based on distance to municipal parking lots, actually requested said municipal parking permits. So, it's really not a solution that a lot of people are attracted to. I mean, there are a lot of people that have need that don't necessarily find that municipal parking lots, oftentimes 10 to 15 minutes walking, solves their concerns. And again, that's just a piece of datum that the working group.
It's heaviest in the non-Axum area.
Yeah.
And in other areas, it's
Yeah.
very light. And to Mr. Clave's point, some people probably just don't know about it.
I was going to say the same thing. That I don't know how well advertised it is.
Yeah, and then I think people are we can get into all the whys and whats. But people are resourceful on some of this stuff too.
But
No, I was yawning at.
Oh.
It's not exciting.
I'm not
Exciting stuff. It could have been worse. It could have been on public facilities.
Is it bad?
What?
I thought you were. See, this is how slow I am today, Mr. Murphy.
Just having fun. And public facilities is wonderful. I think Councilor Kelly and Councilor Albright are on it. So I don't want to say anything to get them angry at me.
Well, I think committee they're on is wonderful.
Sorry?
Just by virtue of their being on.
Oh, wait a second.
They make it special, yes. You're lucky to have it. All right, so expanding the overnight parking to the designated streets. So no overnight parking. There's no overnight parking right now permitted during the ban on the streets. This option is the largest type of change to the ban, and the number of people who might be interested in this could potentially, fill into a lot of categories. So this is going to act to everybody who has to have a car for work, they don't have a place to park because they don't own a space, or they can't rent a space, all that type of thing, up to and including somebody who just has four cars and doesn't want to do the tandem thing. So it covers a pretty broad. I think in general our conversations focus more on the folks who had what we perceive to be need, which is they just don't have a place to put their car, and that could include people who are two-car family at one spot as well. But kind of the more and the focus in there. So again, you can maintain the status quo, do nothing. You can put a permit down and tie it to one specific location. You have to validate that. You can do a permit and open. If you said we're going to have like parking zones like they have in San Francisco, say this is zone A, zone B, zone C, you're designated to a zone. So there's a lot of ways to implement this. And you may just exempt whole streets and areas and anybody can park there. Doesn't matter who they are. Again, they could be new residents, they could be new residents in this case. If you could open it up to that extent. One thing you would have to do with this is today the ordinance does not support exempting streets or areas, so you have to go and get a modification to enable that, which you can do. But in order to actually say we want to exempt Beacon Street or something, you'd have to actually codify that.
Who designates? You want to go into that?
Oh, yeah, this is actually worthwhile to understand too. Again, it's directly involves you. So you can modify these things, particularly the on-street parking, directly by ordinance. So that would be bringing it in, docketing it, or going through the whole process and approving it. You can give it to traffic council, and the way to do that is outlined in here, which probably is the most expeditious way to do it. Certainly they're set up, that's their job to sort of do these types of things rather than tying it up in council. Or you could do a hybrid where the council basically says, here's the rules, which also makes a lot of sense. And let traffic council then be the judge of whether to do that or not. The other thing that kind of leads into this and this came up in different discussions, but the whole notion of how do you get the community involved in this? So say you wanted to open up a section of, I'm going to pick on Newtonville for a second here. So you wanted to open up a section of Newtonville, the proposal for that, how that could come forward. We actually had some discussion about whether or not the residents could themselves just unilaterally, with the counselor, without a counselor, and say, we want a trial in this neighborhood, and then bring that, and then of course you'd have to, discuss that and debate whether or not you wanted to do it, and then take that to traffic council and let them decide whether or not to grant it or not. But you have that. But no matter what you did, there was also some strong support saying you got to communicate on this, let everybody know that you're going to do it. And of course, you're not going to get, this is editorializing by Chris, I apologize, you're never going to get 100%. So you're going to have to, manage that and think about what's the greater good, if it makes sense. If you keep do we leave the sample size thing in? I think we kept it in, might have skipped over it. If you do this on a small enough scale, the potential for problems or being able to unwind things is greatly reduced. So that's an option too. So I wouldn't just write it out and say we can't do it. So
What's small? 3 streets, 10 streets?
I don't know what small is.
Yeah.
I don't know what small is.
It's like anything open to interpretation.
Yeah. I don't even know how many streets there are in the city. I think it's like 2,000, but I'm not sure. I know when I was knocking on doors running for counselor, there were 170 or 180 streets in Ward 4. So I just extrapolated that times 8, but I don't know.
Also, you can't park on every street anyway.
I can't have houses on street.
I know, yeah, I know. Yeah, you can't park on all streets, so it's actually less.
Yeah, and the other thing that comes in, we talked about the kind of the prohibitions, if you will, earlier, like you wouldn't do it near a college campus. You wouldn't do it where parking minimums are non-existent. You probably wouldn't do it in areas where, and I did talk to several people about this, just asking questions in traffic, with areas where you have a lot of traffic today where a car that sat there for a couple of days might cause a real problem. Think of even streets where occasionally you have 2 lanes of traffic moving in Newton. There are some streets like that, or major arterials. But this goes back to when you're implementing stuff, the police, who probably have the best, up to the minute idea as to what traffic conditions are there or what they're going to be, would have to be involved in figuring this out too. So it wouldn't just be the council determining this. You definitely would have to pretty tight with the police on this. Okay.
I'm on good terms with Captain Devine.
Adjusting the band duration. Any questions on that, on streets?
How the areas are described.
Sorry?
There was a section.
What?
Sorry, before you moved on to the next section, I
Yeah.
think there's more.
You want me to do more?
Oh, how designated.
What part? The zones and segments?
Yeah, but maybe that's obvious.
That's obvious. I think, well,
Okay.
you can do this by street, you can do it by segment, you can do it by area, literally, whatever makes sense. We did have one kind of other idea that I think it did make it into the file, where someone said, you could have an area that doesn't have enough parking, and there's no way you want to park on the streets there because it's already too tight. Why not just take an adjacent neighborhood? And I called it the spillover option.
Oh, yeah, that's going to go over great.
Well, the San Francisco article, if you read it, people were walking a half mile to go into those districts where there was parking and their district didn't have any.
Mhm.
So they were willing to do the walk. I mean, it sounds like in Newton, people aren't willing to walk 15 minutes.
Well, in the winter.
No,
But we don't
It's all
know.
small.
We don't
You
know.
don't know. You don't know.
You'd find
See,
out.
but
if you did it
And
wrong.
this is the challenge with this, is that these are all.
Hold on. Council Greenberg.
When you were discussing designated areas, would you discuss, alternative sides of the road? So it's not, no.
No, I mean, it may have come up, but we didn't be serious. I mean, like, you gotta move your car on Tuesday, you park on this side, Wednesday, you park, it's an implementation issue, but, we didn't get really into
Okay.
that. I don't recall about that. I won't give my opinion on that one. It's sort of,
You're literally tasked with giving us your opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You're literally tasked with giving us your opinion.
I lived in the Back Bay for a number of years, and I couldn't afford a parking space. I had to get up before 7 a.m. twice a week and move my car. And
it was fun.
And finding a space in Back Bay at any time of day is not easy.
In New York, there are people who literally make a living sitting in cars,
Yeah.
managing other people's.
There was a Seinfeld episode about that.
Parking is a resource. Parking is a resource. All right. Did I Okay, adjusting the band duration.
8.5.
So again, this kind of stands on its own. It's, I'm sorry.
What page?
8.5, 12, page 12.
I apologize for trying to do two things at one time here. We talked about segments and zones, okay. How designations operate. Again, the reason this is important is just the communication of you know, the fact that you're going to do this, and then being flexible about, you know, being able to adjust as the trial goes on, and also setting time limits on these things so they don't run off into perpetuity, and also force yourself to measure the impact of the waivers. Adjusting the ban duration kind of stands on its own. The recommendation was just to cut it in half, take it from 4 months to 2 months. Maintain the status quo, suspend enforcement during defined periods. This is kind of merge off this. This winter holiday thing actually has been done in the past. I know when I was on PSAT, Chief McDonald was chief. He just told the police, just, you know, the week around Christmas, just let it go. But I guess maybe they got Hanukkah in there too. Maybe, I don't know. But so this stuff has been done, and I think there are some. It's informal, but it is done. Yeah.
I know Brookline either informally or formally waives the ban on like Christmas and New Year's Eve. I think it's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
But that might be an interesting little sub test to do here. You know, it doesn't cost a lot, and you know, it's 1 week period, and it's Christmas anyway, so everybody's, or at least a lot of people are, you know, traveling and visiting and so forth, and it'd be interesting to see if there was any real issue over it.
you can always park in your neighbor's parking lot if they're not there.
That's right.
I don't recommend that.
Okay, so that's adjusting ban. Okay, protecting against adverse effects. Snow emergencies would have to probably be declared a little more. I don't want to say spontaneously, but clearly people would have to be aware of you know, the impact of that. The 72-hour rule today, you know, you can't, if you have to move your car, otherwise it's stored. Practically speaking, this is hard to enforce. It's complaint driven, and we probably would have to do more diligence, I guess, on making people aware of that rule, and also then, you know, having the resources to test and measure that. Enforcing parking space and driveway clearance requirements. Monitor spillover. This is an interesting one. We talked about this. There's a number of kind of abutting communities that probably wouldn't bother. I mean, people from Weston aren't going to cross 128 to park in Auburndale, I don't think. You know, but some other areas you may have where you don't have. We also have an overnight ban. You may then decide to park in Newton. But I think when we looked at that, we didn't think there was a lot of exposure on that.
Well, no, Antrim, Watertown.
Watertown, that'll be the only one.
Yeah, along, because it's street by street. I mean, you're just in one street and it turns into Watertown.
Yeah.
On the east
Just
side of
annex the
Antrim.
part of Watertown.
Pardon?
We should annex the part of Watertown.
Oh, that's
south
on
of
this side,
Charles.
yeah.
That has been talked about.
The Watertown cut their ban in half,
Yep.
so we'd be going there, right?
Well, that was kind of the sentiment of the group, is that we might be going there as opposed to them coming us. But again, we looked at it. We did think about that. And there are maps in the back that show all the other abutting communities and what their rules are. So you can kind of look at that.
Question, Mr. Halley, you said Watertown cut their ban. What is it on each end of ours? Is it in the middle, at the end? Like, what is the actual ban in Watertown?
Starting, check,
January 1st through February 28th. Maybe March 1st, yeah. So January
and February? Okay.
And they just implemented that as they're calling it a pilot change, and in fact, that's what the mayor is because there's a thing about dynamic. They actually extended it to, it was supposed to end March 1st, and they extended it to March 15th because of the snow situation. The municipal lots is also part of it.
You mean for this past winter, they temporarily extended it to March 15th, but normally it'll be March 1st.
It was supposed to be March 1st.
But this year they extended it. Got it.
It was not a trial. The city council did not pass it as a trial. I've spoken to a city councilor in Watertown about it, regardless of what their city town manager, mayor, whoever, says about it. The city council is the one that passed the ordinance and at least
So it is a permanent
not a
change
pilot.
in Watertown,
It's a permanent change in Watertown.
January to March 1st. Okay, that's good to know.
It's all pilots. Legislation can change.
You can change anything.
Legislation can change, but it's best to keep something like that, if you are gonna change it.
Unless you're trying to get snow shoveling. Then how long did it take? 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
10 years. Okay. Recommendations. So we're in section 9. Tier 1. So these are divided into tiers. Broad agreement. So basically everybody, this is motherhood. Disability access. And as we said, as I mentioned before, very strong support for this to be more formalized, to be more accommodating, I think, and to go all the way up to and including, placards giving you pretty much blanket permission. So the committee in general, with very few exceptions, was very solidly behind that. Mitigation measures, just some of this is just general advice, like review the criteria for declaring snow emergencies and consider stronger penalties for violations, and consistent enforcement of the 72-hour rule, which could be, if you go to the streets, that will become important. And then none of this is going to be worth anything if you don't set up effective measurement and evaluation methods. And again, that's going to take some time, and the committee can still help you with that. The group can help you with that, but we're pretty strong on the fact that there's so much data already in this report underlying this. You have to continue that on, kind of take the things that are in here and extend it, if you will. Tier 2, recommended with design decisions referred to the committee, so temporary exceptions. So we think, again, this could be more formal than it is now, to actually tell people exactly what they can and can't do, how to do it. What was I going to say about that? Yeah. When to do it, how to do it. Oh, and communicate it. Make sure people are aware of it. That goes for all of them, but again, especially for something like this that isn't very well known. And then presented without a consensus recommendation. And again, I had that little spiel at the front about unanimity versus consensus. In general, I think all these things had more than just minimal support. In some cases, there was very strong support, but nothing in here is like, a flyer idea that was just one person's idea. Expanded lock access, we think this is low-hanging fruit. And then moving on to targeted street trials, we talked about what that would be. So again, we are recommending that be considered. It's just that not everyone was unanimous on that. Location selection guidance, and this is interesting. So rather than, I'm just going to read it verbatim. Rather than recommend specific locations, the working group provides guidance about where its criteria point. Some areas, like Oak Hill Park, Thompsonville, Waven, Chestnut Hill, Newton, Lower Falls, really have no municipal lot in their villages, and they really don't have a way to walk conveniently off-street parking. If the inventory remains the same, these might be strong candidates for street trials. Again, there may not even be much need here, but it could be interesting just to try someplace and see what happens. It'll kind of test the idea that what about places that don't have strong need? It's another case to include in this.
Question: does the Riverside parking lot allow overnight parking?
For a fee, yes.
For a fee, yeah.
For a fee, a monthly fee, nightly fee? No?
I think it's by calendar day.
Yeah.
By what?
By calendar day.
By day. So, okay.
Calendar day. So if you're there at 6 p.m. and you don't leave until 10 a.m., you might be charged for 3 days. You're right. Yeah.
It's like $6. Forget it.
Woodland though does. The Woodland garage allows overnight parking.
Yes. Yeah, I know. That's one of those spots where people go for.
Yeah, before you talk to Councilor Silver, it's funny, you made me think of something, Councilor Kelly. We in the report too, we're not against asking private businesses for lot access as well. My experience, and something maybe Councilor Wright was on this too. We tried to do this in West Newton Square, and we went to people who own property there. When Mr. Korf had Santander, and even the parking garage over on Chestnut Street. And they didn't want the church. They didn't want to get involved because of liability, insurance liability. But that doesn't mean that other organizations wouldn't be receptive to it. So that's.
This was a case where Watertown succeeded in getting commercial spots marked in commercial areas. So there is an existence proof.
That was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And
They did
ownership changes.
Watertown is experimental with private.
Yes.
Not just gonna do
Yeah.
a trial at Chestnut Street, for instance, that used to say no, the previous developer wouldn't let anyone park in that empty lot.
You mean
Right.
you mean the angled one?
No,
Right.
in the garage.
She's talking about the garage, Chestnut, right where the pike is.
Oh, in West Newton.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
They said no for years and they're gonna start a trial, thinking towards shared parking.
Well, they now allow some police to park in there.
Places are no longer parking there apparently.
Really? They had like 10, 15 spots.
They did, but they don't now. But anyway, that things change is what
That's a good point.
Mr. Markowitz's point
That's
is.
a very good point. Things do change. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so one of the things that, I mean, it's clear that was a struggle, and I sort of still struggle with, is that we don't necessarily understand what the exact parking problem is on a sort of aggregate basis. Like, is it that the person has no driveway? Is it that there's literally no parking because maybe it's a condo? Is it that there are more vehicles than there is driveway or garage? And so, apologies if I missed this, but did you, because we can't answer that because we don't know how many driveways there are, did you consider a zoning-based approach?
Considering what? I'm
A
sorry.
zoning-based approach to encourage more off-street parking, which is to say that, people typically have to get zoning approval to build a driveway or get a curb cut. And there's a whole other pathway that we could explore, which is to just encourage people to build more driveways. I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm just saying that is a pathway.
People don't like giving curb cuts.
I'm aware of that. Yes, but I'm saying that,
Well, if you go to the heat maps, I'm gonna ask for help from a couple of people. But let me just start by saying the heat maps were an attempt to show density in areas where we perceived there was not enough parking because we didn't see garages,
Right.
and we saw a lot of multifamily units. Mr. Halley actually has been trying to figure out how to map driveways in, and there may be a way to do it. I'm not looking at the back of my head, so I don't know what he's doing right now. But I know he was thinking about that. No, you can't stop him. He wants to do this. He wants to do this.
There's surely a way to solve that. I mean, it makes me wonder,
But you're asking $1 million question here. It's the question I always have. Say, where is the real problem or need? Okay,
Yeah.
and we kind of identified areas that we think are likely areas for that, but we can't say definitively. Right, and that's
going to be the will of the council.
But generally speaking, you did not consider this a zoning-based approach to increasing parking, which is to say,
like I said, like an SR1 has to have this, or an SR2 has to.
or if you're in an SR1, you can by right expand your driveway.
That's beyond the scope of this committee one.
It's a permeable surface.
I don't necessarily think it's beyond the scope. I think we're talking about a parking issue. I mean, it's beyond the scope to make that decision. But
Well, so you open that door, okay? You can't park in the front setback now, right? You're not supposed to.
One car, I think.
Well,
One car per unit.
I mean, people do it, but they're not supposed to. But
without approval.
now you're getting into all the different zones. What's in an MR versus an SR versus a VC versus an MFG. They all a lot of them do have parking requirements, but there may be another way to come at it.
when you say you can't park at a front setback, meaning you can't put a driveway in, or you can't actually locate your vehicle? Okay, so you couldn't pull it up on the lawn.
You shouldn't.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
People do.
Mr. Chair.
I know. I just want to, Councilor Silver.
Yeah, I think, we've gone far enough. I just wanted to know if this was part of this, discussion. But no, you didn't want to touch it with it.
No. It's not that. I think I don't know. Mike's got his hand up for something, but it wasn't that. I think there is a bit of a scope issue, and we dealt with the idea. We talked about parking minimums there, and we decided, the feeling was in areas that were designed to be car-free, car-light, that wouldn't be a good area for a trial, because by definition, they're saying we're not building parking spaces. But some other approach to provide relief and say, yeah, people can, increase the permeable surface of their yards, which we know will run into. I'm using it as an example. That one probably wouldn't go very far. But there may be other ways you can do relief.
Okay. All set, Councilor Silver?
Yes.
All right, Councilor Golden, your hand is raised. You should be able to unmute. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have to jump in a bit, but I did want to weigh in. First of all, I want to thank Chair Markowitz and the members of the group. The city's really owes you a tremendous debt over this. I read the report, and it really is terrific. I appreciated sort of the policy analysis, but the history as well. It was really edifying. I mean, who among us knew that Herbert Hoover in the city of Los Angeles had such a profound effect on parking in Newton 100 years ago? But there it is. But I'm really grateful for the education here. And I appreciate your identifying all these potential objectives and the ways and means by which we might get there, albeit appropriately putting it toward us and the city bureaucracies writ large to figure out the details of all of this. But the one thing I really want to sort of put across is you broke this down into 3 tiers. I want to align myself with all 3 tiers. I would like to explore all of them. Again, as has been mentioned many times here, this is a pilot. We can adjust as time goes on. If something works, great. If something doesn't work, if it's just too cumbersome from an enforcement standpoint, so be it. But to sort of embrace this and attempt to do as much as we can through a first pilot season, presumably it remains, winter of 26, 27. I'd like to try as much of this as we can, with a specific eye toward shortening. I think this is the most concrete and the biggest bang for the buck is shortening the duration of the ban. And if we can mimic Watertown, great. If it's 2 months, if it's 3, it's still better than 4. And I would like to shrink that up. I'd like to tighten it up. I think January and February make the most sense. But if we have to sort of expand a bit on either end, so be it. But I think that's a really significant deliverable for the half of the city that voted for the ban to be lifted. So I just want to let you know, going forward, where I'm coming from, that's both for the group as well as my colleagues. I'd like to embrace as much of this as we can, understanding that there's now a heavy lift as the group begins to conclude its work. There's going to be a heavy lift for the city, and I understand that might be really difficult to do some of these things. I get it, because there's capacity issues here, but I'd like to do as much as we can, and that's ought to be what I'll be focused on as we head into the coming months. So thanks very much to all who put this together. It really is a profoundly important piece of work, and I'm grateful for all that you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Golden. Appreciate the comments. Mr. Markowitz, do you want to, I think you left off at location selection guidance.
Yeah.
On page 15.
I read that part. Rather than recommend specific locations, this is where I segued into the idea that there may even be areas that really don't have, from what we can tell looking at heat maps and so forth, or just from general knowledge of the city, don't think there's any real issue with people looking for parking, but it might be interesting to do it, to take one of those areas and try it anyway. If you did shorten the ban, you would kind of catch all that. You just don't have there's other things you wouldn't learn by doing that. But again, I don't want to get too far back into that. But it's you can put things in your test that would also confirm, positively or negatively certain assumptions you have too. I think it's all for that. I was going to get into evaluation and measurement. Unless there's any other questions on
You mentioned Oak Hill, but you didn't mention the denser neighborhoods.
Down here, Chris.
Oh.
Other areas.
So I talked about that.
Danielle, can you go up a page to
Okay, yeah, thank you.
other areas? Right
There we
there. No, you just missed it. There you go.
Other areas such as Nonantum, Newtonville, and other north side neighborhoods have historically demonstrated high existing demand against limited off-street parking, a condition lot expansion may ease but not fully solve. At the same time, street trials in these more densely populated areas may cause conflicts with municipal services and other residents. Community discussion is critically important to bridge these challenges. Okay. Evaluation and measurement. So these are the big questions. So who uses new parking and how much? $1 million question, or maybe the $500,000 question. Does it interfere with winter or street operations? Another very significant, in any meaningful way. To date, they don't have. You all know that there hasn't been much of a problem, even with with shortening the ban and so forth. Does it affect safety and access? This build up on streets and so forth, people not moving cars. Does it become the next point? Does it become vehicle storage or draw parking from elsewhere? Vehicle storage wouldn't be in the big one. And does it reduce the hardship it's meant to reduce? So resident feedback would be important in this one. You're going to have to find a way to kind of really target those areas and really get a good sense as to whether or not it actually made a meaningful impact. I mean, even in areas where it's interesting that some of the congested areas of the city, the split on the vote was actually very close. Like the repeal may not have been voted for, but the ones who did want to repeal were not in a significant number. So,
just to amplify that point, right? The dense neighborhoods are both the neighborhoods that have the need as we can describe as demand, and then they're also my sense and understanding is they're also the neighborhoods that want clear streets. So where it's densely populated.
Want clear streets mean what?
I mean those people who have parking available don't want the streets parked up.
Okay.
So I think that's really the heart of it is where the demand is high, the desire to keep the bans, the reasons for keeping the ban are also high, and the tension is,
absolutely,
it's going to be trade-offs.
Mm-hmm. So solving that is probably of all of this. Solving that would be is like the prize. If you can figure that how to keep we're looking at Councilor Greenberg, in Ward 1, and certainly half of that, but you got part of 3, 2, and part of 2. Sorry. You got part of 3. It's the north side neighborhoods. They've got this issue, and can you find a way to basically support both constituencies? That's why the parking lots came up as kind of the easier thing. But if the parking lots aren't enough, then you're looking at the streets, and the question is what's an appropriate street?
Because those dense streets don't have enough off-street parking. But then the folks who do have enough don't want their street. Car parking.
Right. This is classic.
But
Park
also,
in Watertown.
But also, like on my street, it's not very wide, and with the plowing, it's a lot less. And if you have cars on both sides, I mean, even during the day, we have UPS drivers just, laying on the horn until someone comes out and move their cars because they can't get through.
Yeah, this is personal commentary, but I don't understand why on a narrow street 2 cars park parallel to each other and leave. It's just I mean, I've always owned decent cars. I don't like replacing mirrors or taking scrapes off. I don't know how. I'll stop it there. I don't know what the thought process. That's when things like the alternate side stuff comes into play. But against an implementation question, you should ask, because then they do get plowed up. I mean, I was on streets last winter where when an Amazon delivery vehicle was coming down, those big honking things they use now, I had to pull in somebody's driveway to let them by. And it was the street was probably 22 feet wide, 24 feet wide, so it wasn't like a tiny street.
I just want to make one point. The alternate side of the street parking that Councilor Greenberg talked about, switching back and forth, that is one solution. Other is you lift the ban only on one side. And so you'd say, no parking on this side of the street for the duration of the winter, you wouldn't have to go into the complexity of altering the street.
That's one of the recommendations of exempting streets through traffic council or through the city council. For example, traffic council would say, and we do this all the time, no parking from here to here on this side of the street, and just they'll leave it at that, or no parking on the odd side, or no parking on the even side.
What I'm saying is that you could lift the ban on a street with both sides of the street parking on only one side.
So instead of
Yeah,
going
yeah.
every other day, you can go by year. This year you're parking on the onside.
Right,
Next
you
year
just do it.
you
You just do it once.
Yeah.
You can just make a decision.
Yeah, but it still takes an act of the council to.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I'm just as mentioning as a not listed solution.
Right.
And then half the people would argue.
You know what? Screw 'em. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes
You're being sarcastic.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
There's a difference between being argumentative and contrary. You're being argumentative. Oh, I'm being contrary.
Oh, you're being funny.
On to section 10.
No, we did section.
We did section 10? On to section 11.
On to section 11. Trial duration. The audience is starting to fade here. They need their popcorn.
Yeah.
Trial duration and safeguards. Right. Again, whatever you do, we recommend you do put expiration dates on it, and that you're measuring it from the start and pulsing along the way. So the options here were a single winter trial with automatic expiration, a multi-winter trial, which may very well be where you wind up. We talk about implementation and phasing. A trial of indefinite duration with mandatory periodic evaluation. That's possible. You could just open it up and say, we're just going to keep doing this, and at some point we'll come back. God knows how many of the counselors who vote for this will be on the council when it comes up. It may just get forgotten, like the snow ban or origination, and in 2034, somebody comes back and say, why are we doing this?
Did you know the original winter ban was a trial?
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, structural change. So amending the ordinance directly without trial framing or schedule or evaluation. The working group does not recommend this option. However, it's just in there because we needed everything else had 4 options. So with this.
Basically, you're not recommending a permanent change.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, not recommending a permanent change initially.
But,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
But the idea for trial waivers was embraced across the board, and very strongly in certain areas. In other areas, there was at least some support for it. Safeguards on continuing on page 17 there. Decision criteria considered before the launch. So before each trial element begins, the council should consider whether to adopt it and how to use it. Public input engagement, mandatory public evaluation. So I know you're going to get feedback on this. Snow emergency override, a declared emergency suspends all trial parking right as it does today. And adjustment before abandonment. So if the trial causes problems, it shouldn't be necessarily just throw it out or say. And I think this is the essence of a trial. You're going to probably have to, modify and tweak it as you go along, but you'll be a lot smarter too once you have experience of actually doing it. And council jurisdiction, no element should bind a future council, so every element can be adjusted. I don't know how we would even do that exactly, but or how you would do it exactly, but it needs to be something that can be modified going down the road. And then implementation. So you got to. Did I miss phasing? I miss phasing. Oh, somehow, let me talk to phasing. So we had different levels of agreement on this. I don't think anybody was against phasing. The reason the people who support phasing would say it makes sense is that I think it's really the choice of what to phase. I think where we got hung up was we're not against phasing. I think what we decided would be the priority. Disability, pretty much was in everybody's kind of wish list for something to trial. I think whether you go to the streets or the parking lot or do them together, that's something you're going to have to discuss, debate, whatever. But the thing to consider is if you want to do something on December 1st and not miss that opportunity, what can you realistically, of all these options here, actually get done by that time? Remember, you got to get all the stakeholders to agree to it. And then 2, you got to put the procedures in place maybe legal changes, communication. So all the things that we talked about, the midterm status, but that are in here. There's a lot of people in the implementation side, and you're not the implementers. So you're going to have to get buy-in from the implementers.
The other thing is the implementation by December 1st is that any change to the ordinance needs to be voted on no later than our first full council meeting in November, because there is a 20-day waiting period for any ordinance change. So it has to be voted on by the full council no later than our first meeting in November, and working backwards, which I will do later on tonight.
So let me push back on that a little bit, Mr. Markowitz, that if we shorten the season, then that would do two things. One is it would be a bit of relief, and it would also give us some time to do other things. Because if we shorten the season into January 1 to March 1, pace what Councilor Lucas just said, that would give us into December to then make other changes. So that would not only give us immediate relief, but it would also give us some more working time to do other things in this season. So I would suggest, I know the purpose of this meeting is to listen, but I would also, my one thought here tonight is we should consider the shortening first as a practical matter as well as a policy matter.
You want to respond to that, Councilor Block?
Oh, I wasn't going to respond to that at all, but I wanted to make a comment.
Oh, of course you can make a comment or two.
I think, Mr. Markowitz, we are all indebted to you and the members of this working group for all the hours and all the thinking that you put into this. If we had to pay a consulting firm to produce this would literally be this would cost tens of thousands of dollars. And it's all really useful. It's all very thought-provoking. We're all gonna wrestle with the sequence of what we should consider, with the ramifications, the weeds, as you put it several times, and that won't be easy for us, but we'll do our best. One of the things I wanted to go back to was 8.3. 8.3 on page.
Starts on page 9, I think, but it's mostly on page 10.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Well, the I don't know.
You're good, Dan.
It's the expansion into other parking lots, which I thought was 8.3.
It is.
It is 8.3. And I think you had used the phrase low-hanging fruit for this because this step wouldn't require anything brand new. If we have all the procedures in place, maybe we need to educate people more about them, and might not even require an ordinance change. It might be able to be done administratively that, okay, we're going to add these parking areas. But this didn't quite make your recommendation list. I mean, it was an option, but
you want to know why it wasn't unanimous?
Well, or why you wouldn't call this a consensus, even if 6 out of 7 of you, thought that you would recommend this. I think that would help us, and I would call that consensus rather than unanimous.
Yeah.
So what was sort of behind this?
I think that one was fairly heavily tilted towards using the municipal lots, but we didn't have unanimity on it.
Okay.
That's why consensus was used.
Okay.
And the flip side, I think the curb, we used to call it the curb, the streets. I think that was also that was narrow as well. It was like, I don't want to get into vote counts. It wasn't like 4-3. It was like 5-2, 6-1 on these things.
Okay.
So they weren't just nothing, even the shortening that they had, which I said I was not in favor of that personally for other reasons. Even that had a reasonable amount of support.
Okay.
So nothing in here is like one person's idea. They've all got more support than that.
All right. Thanks.
And I want to come back to something that Councilor Roach said too, because, you know, with respect to phasing, you could have I'm going to use a new term here, waves within the phase. So say December 1st, you implement, you get the disability stuff and maybe the parking lots in, and you can't get the street thing done or shorten the ban or whatever. You do that still within the duration of the ban, but you do it January, February. And I don't know if that makes sense, but just thinking there's nothing that says you can't do that.
Yeah, right.
You know? So
I just, yeah, the December 1st is, if we want something ready to go by December 1st, you need it by beginning of November. So.
yeah, I actually think that seriously, someone who implemented stuff all my life as a consultant, it's always getting the people to do stuff that you design. That's the hard part. Designing, it's always easy. Building, it's not too hard. Getting people to actually use it correctly and tell you what they're doing, that's like an art, and that takes time.
Enforcement.
Mr. Chair.
Hold up, wait. Councilor Keller, were you saying something?
Enforcement is a piece
Oh.
of what's making.
If you don't have enforcement on this, you're going to miss. I mean, it's not just the enforcement part of it; it's the data that will be collected from that enforcement. If you don't do that, you may as well not do this because you're going to still have the same questions that Councilor Silver had 20 minutes ago. You just won't know.
Yep. Mr. Howard.
One thing I wanted to suggest, I do have the interactive maps for each one of those. If I could just take a couple minutes to go through to give you an overview of what they are, if that would be helpful.
Are you gonna?
Let's
No, are you gonna put it up on the screen?
let's do that once we get through the road.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll move in. We'll walk through
Oh,
the
absolutely.
tendencies. Okay, so we can do that.
Also, I just want to remind everyone, it is almost 9 o'clock, and we are not voting on anything tonight except to hold the item. Go on.
Okay. So the last thing I just want to say before Mike takes you to the heat maps, or Mr. Howey takes you to the heat maps, is other than all the implementation things we talked about.
Hold on. What page are you on?
I'm really at the end of the report here, 13.
13?
Page 19.
Page 19.
So again, as I said at the start of this, we hope that you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel that is here. The whole point of this was to say, we didn't give you final answers, but we tried to lay it out to say, look, this is probably almost everything you could think of, and a lot of the intended details with it. So hopefully this jump starts you, because I think you still have a fair amount of work in front of you. To that point, the whole committee, whole group, is willing on whatever you need to come back and help you. You know, that could be somebody talking to Mr. Halley about how to use the maps or whatever. And I think we will take that as a follow up to talk to IT and figure out if there is some way to we just haven't done it yet, but we will do that. And same thing with data. You know, if you need more information, we've got the resources to do that. We don't have to have all. I'll say this as the chair. I don't think you have to have all 6 or 7 of us in a room to do that either. I think, you can, through maybe through Councilor Lucas, put those requests in and we can figure out how to do that. But the committee, the group, excuse me, you're a committee, we're a group.
Yeah.
The group was not only willing to support this effort going forward, we also want to come back at some point and just sort of see how you did.
What did we sign up for?
Courage.
We are still voters,
Yeah, that's right.
And as you all know, you're running for office every day, you're in the chair. So,
It sounds like you want to see how well the people you did the report for and the design actually implemented it.
well, this is real interesting, I think.
Yeah.
This is interesting stuff.
Okay. Are you all set? And can we go to Mr. Howey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, let me tee him up.
Okay, but are you on Zoom?
I'm on Zoom.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so you can just fill it here. So there's a number of appendices here. We talked about all of them, but obviously the heat maps are, you could spend an evening just looking at these things and playing with them. They're real interesting. What we hope to do, if we can get this somehow, so you can play with it more, is give you the chance to interactively actually, switch the buttons and see what comes up. Take it away, Mike.
All right. Can you stop sharing with the red button? Can you make Mr. Halley a co-host? Or
I think he is.
He already
Yes, he is.
Okay. All right.
All right.
You okay with it?
So, I just wanted to walk through these maps.
Wait. Hold on for a second. How come it's not on the full screen? Like,
Let me,
are you? You're sharing the screen, but we're not seeing the whole.
So if you can just
Sharing the window.
cross out the.
Yeah, you take out the precipitants.
There we go. Okay, all right.
So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what the maps are, and once we have the interactive ones, what it offers you. So the first is this data is taken from the Newton Maps and Newton Assessors database. So this is as real data as possible. I checked with Greenfield in GIS, so it's legitimate data, and this is based on walking distances, not fly distances, so walking down streets. And so this is walking distance to all the municipal parking lots. Again, that is not what those parking lots is not specifically designated, but it does include Chestnut Street, for instance, which has that ample parking. And so if you zoom in on this, you can actually see for each of these little hexagons, this is 22 minutes to the nearest parking lot. And if you look, it's like 22 minutes walk to lot. And so you can see in the red, you can have up to 48 minutes in some locations, 52. That's because in the south, on the edges,
There are no municipal
yes,
laws.
exactly.
Yeah.
54 minutes.
So
This is where someone drives you, drops you off, and drive back.
Can't they park in Boston?
Is that right, Mr. Claves?
So I did a couple scenarios where if you turn on all the municipal lots, but not fire, police, DPW yards, things get a lot better. So you're in there's still areas of the city that are not so great. If anyone in Chestnut Hill needs,
They have ample parking.
Well, that's also Boston College, perhaps. So the campus.
so, but you still have, in Oak Hill Park, you still have some areas that are still far away.
Yeah.
But things got better.
Got a lot better.
Yeah.
And if you could, I took all the municipal and commercial lots that were available. It changes things not surprisingly more. I was
Commercial, but meaning private.
everything open to customers.
Yeah.
So so the street in Chestnut Hill, that area turns on, but it isn't as much as you would think, honestly. But it does help. Yeah, so that's fun. So other maps that are here.
This is a 15-minute walk or 10-minute walk?
In this case, if you zoom up, you can see, but
Yeah, but your color coding, the green is meant to be
yes,
what
the
distance?
green is, these are in
Under 10.
5-minute increments.
The greener the better.
The numbers are within the
Yeah.
colors.
Green goes up to 10.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Light yellow.
Right,
goes
so
to
yellow
15.
gets you up to 50.
Gets you up to 50.
to
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Howley, these don't show the sort of how the walk occurred, how possible. This is just distance, correct? This doesn't show the fact that there are sidewalks or aren't sidewalks, or some of these streets are busy streets to access some of these parking lots. Is that correct, Mr. Howley?
all of the, it's not walking down Route 9 or Mass Pike. This is the same one that we use for safe routes to schools to figure out shortest routes. Doug Greenfield's working on a map that will have that. That can always be dropped into place.
So the answer is it does consider sidewalks and crossings and things like
It's
that.
not. It doesn't. We don't have a map of sidewalks as well.
I don't mean sidewalks, but it considers a route. It doesn't have you walking through walls and things like that.
That's right.
Oh, some streets.
So
Okay, hold on. Let's stick with
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Halley. Hold on.
let's zip through the maps so you are familiar with them. This takes the data for the last 3 winters for police citations. In some cases for the overnight parking ban, in some cases where the dots are, we know exactly where they are. In some cases they're on the streets. If they're streets, I distributed it along the whole distance. So, Common Ave for the most part doesn't have that. But you can see from this where places are getting hit. And if you just read one of these off, if you choose one of these dark streets here, 0 in one winter, 29 in another, 19 in another, short distance, in a very, very short distance. This one has 29, 54, and 40 in 3 successive winters. So how those are done.
And that is no Nantum, just to be clear.
And across from all
That's
the,
right. But you'll see,
700
it's no part of the
Whoa.
city, yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, what was that?
That is, you could look at it sideways, yes.
Yeah.
No part of the city is untouched, is what I would say.
by tickets.
By tickets, that's correct. This is the, using information from the police through the Yes campaign. This shows the lots, and this is the 24 permits out of 152 spots.
Just so you know, we can't really see from back here. You're on your computer. You have to really zoom in.
There you go. There you go.
And even then,
So
yeah, okay.
So
all right.
that's what that diagram shows in your maps. So you can look exactly what the walking distance. People may not be walking to the lots, but it gives you some sense of how inconvenient it is to get to the lot.
Yeah.
So wait, go back to
Of
that one,
course.
like, there's the purple one, Cypress.
Sure.
So there's, okay,
So in this area, as you can see the chart that's in another one of the appendices, these are not very, in Newton Center, they're not very full because you've got a lot of parking.
Yeah.
However, if you go up to Nonantum, those lots are the ones that are pretty close to capacity.
Yeah.
Here. You know, 19 out of 27
You
spots.
see that in Appendix 5.
Exactly.
Chapel Street is 92%.
So what's the farthest people were parking for a parking lot?
Do I have that number?
Some of it seems pretty far.
Oh, yeah, it's like an hour, isn't it?
Oh, for this, where you get, this is if you get a permit. You could be half an hour away, but you may not be walking.
Yeah.
You may get a ride.
Right.
You may take the T and be walking only one direction. You know, it's.
That's right.
So that's the map.
Yeah, if you live in Woburn, you would get on the train to Newton Center or Newton Highlands or whatever. Yeah.
So this is, postcards from the Yes campaign. Do you want to describe what the postcards were?
Sure. So those are signatures of people that sent in signatures to the Yes campaign, and those were signatures those were specifically signatures that we solicited by leaving postcards on cars parked on the street in the months when the winter parking ban was not in effect. So these are folks who were parked on the street and sent us signatures. You know, went out, bought a stamp, mailed us back signatures as a result of waking up to a postcard on their car, like a ticket, you know, an orange postcard on their car. And again, these were cars that were parked on the street in the non-winter months. So it may or may not give some indication as to sort of where there's a lot of need or where there are a lot of folks who do kind of both park on the street and felt so compelled by their.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, we didn't visit every single street. I mean, that there's, 300 miles of streets in Newton. We didn't have 300 miles of walking in us.
And we did this late at night, so, you know.
Just out of curiosity,
yeah,
what was your response rate? I mean, how many postcards did you get divided by the number of postcards you put on windshields?
I don't have that number. I'd be happy to submit it
Well,
to the.
just
to the yeah, no, I can submit it.
There's a sec. I'm gonna put the chair hat on here for a second and say, with all this data, right? It is data, and you can draw conclusions from it. You have to be careful, but also inquisitive as you spin it. There's a lot of ways to take this information. It doesn't. Many of these things don't tell you a whole story. They tell you part of a story. So you have to, you know, kind of filter it a little bit, you know, with whatever the question is you're dealing with at the time. But I don't think any of it's absolute.
I can submit that rate.
You have any postcards you put out?
I do.
How you respond?
I do. I just don't have the numbers on them. But I can submit that.
Can you wait? Hold on. Can you send that to Danielle so she can forward it to the committee?
Absolutely.
When you get it. Go ahead, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. So there was a question of density. You know, how dense, and you could look at it from multifamily housing, single family housing. What I actually did was break this down by number of bedrooms because we have that information.
Yep.
And then look, there's a formula that you can look in there, sort of caps. If you have a certain number of bedrooms, that is a way to essentially figure out the number of potential cars based on the housing type. So you can see, not surprisingly, that you have high density in a couple parts of them. So there is not information in the assessor's database about driveways, but there is about garages and carports. Garages by square area, so you can kind of figure out how many cars it accommodates. And you may also assume that if you have a garage and a carport, that you probably have a driveway getting to them. So this is a proxy for people who probably have off-street parking. Whether it's enough or not, that's hard to say. We can get a guess for how many spaces are there. So that's what this map means. Then we can subtract those two maps. Cars, units that have cars minus the spots where there are garages and carports. So again, nothing here is perfect. We don't have perfect numbers, but you could probably say this is proportional to the problem, and you can see this is exacerbated in the area where we have two lots that are almost filled up.
Right.
So basically, these are the potential parking shortages.
Yes.
I think it's
off-street parking shortages in Newton.
You add those several slides together,
Yeah.
and again, as Mike said, and kind of Mr. Haley said, it's really it's a relative thing.
Yeah.
If you have an issue, this is where you have it more than likely.
Right.
And I don't think there's really, I don't think we were too surprised by any of this stuff. We kind of, I think you all know this as well.
I think I see my house somewhere. Go on. Oh, sorry. Councilor Irish.
Of course.
Do we have data where, you may have this in there and I missed it, of all the cars that are registered, where they're located?
No, that's a state.
We don't have
You
anything.
get that.
We know there's about,
Excise tax.
Yeah.
I think I remember cars registered.
Yeah, and then do we have by location?
I think the police have access to that. I don't know.
We don't have by location.
Excise tax.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if it's a
mean,
Hold on, hold on. One person speaks because of people on Zoom who can't hear everyone at the same time. Mr. Halley, go ahead.
I don't have the map for that. If you're talking specifically about, do we have an address per vehicle? I don't have that. I don't know if it's available.
Okay, hold on. Are you all set? Mr. Halley?
Yes.
Councilor Roach?
Yeah, I know from direct personal experience recently that the RMV has the data which is available, and that the excise tax department has that as well. So that is data that is available, and we can talk offline about how to incorporate that.
assuming you can get it.
No, I'm saying you can get it.
I mean, the subject, the only caveat I'm throwing out is privacy issues.
No,
So-
and I'm telling you that you can get it.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
And,
Wait, hold on. Are you all set? Yep. Councilor Wright?
and then the thing to take out of that is probably commercial vehicles, because over by your house, we get excise tax because Eversource parks a whole bunch of trucks in the parking lot and that, so you want to take those out. And this data, I have to say, just my driveway, I have people stay with me for a couple of months or whatever, so they don't register, but I have lots of cars.
All right, hold on for a second. Danielle, you want to click postpone?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right, who else had their hand up? Mr. Freudberg?
am I allowed to speak?
Mr. Freudberg?
Thank you very much. So a couple years ago, we did reach out to Jim Shaughnessy as well about excise tax data. I just went back to my email from years ago, and he was able to provide some data that was broken down by precinct and by housing type. I think he had run some numbers for me on, how many, what's the typical parking ratio for a single family or a two family or a condo, and cars per unit. That as according to the excise tax rules.
By precinct?
By precinct. Yeah.
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah. But again, I also have a feeling that it's going to tell us things that we already know.
Let me tell you a secret.
Yeah. Mr. Halley?
Race through these, yeah. So just if you're interested in the potential socioeconomic effects, this is median value per unit. It's not mapped. So guess where Dudley Road is. So this is just a very rough map. This is taking every bus stop and every rail line and saying what is the walking distance to there. It says nothing about frequency, it says nothing about, all of that stuff changes. We know it is quite variable. You know as well as anyone. But this is, if you zoom in, it's, if every transit line worked great, we would, and had great frequency. If you had Chestnut Street, the whole city would be pretty close to a MBTA line. So,
Well, you want to change that for the next, 2.5 years in Newtonville, but anyways, go on.
The buses stop there.
Yeah, okay.
This is just the BCOD zoning areas. So that's something that you can look at if you want. You can always switch back and forth between these. Similarly, this is Newton GIS has parking spaces, but it's not even a complete list. If you look carefully, you can actually see the accessible parking spaces if you have this live.
I'm sorry, this is what?
These are metered parking spaces.
A meter.
They're not even
metered.
metered. Well, it's labeled parking spaces, so that was quite not. So it's here for completeness. And finally, something you all care about, you can flip back and forth between where the words are. So any of these you can choose if you want to see less contrast or you want to see satellite view, you can tile those in. So
Can you put 2 on one? Can you select like 2 of them?
you can switch between them really fast.
That's not quite what you were asking, was it?
I do take requests. So if there's extra features before this is sort of frozen at the city level, I can certainly take that.
So I'm sorry, so we can't look at 2 maps at once?
And overlays.
Can't overlay.
You cannot overlay, but if there was one specific you wanted to overlay, say the ward map or something over another one, I could probably build that in.
Just to be clear, you can't do that right now.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, Councilor Roach, then Greenberg.
So one request I would have is, could you do a delta between yes and no by precinct?
Yeah. The official, it is available.
It's available. Newton Highlands and Newton.
Yeah, I think I
Laurel
got that.
are the 2 highest.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Councilor Roach, are you all set?
I believe I am.
Okay. Councilor Greenberg.
Thank you for all that work, Mike, it's incredible. How do we get access to those maps? Is there in the report, the links?
There is, if it were in the report, we would want a stable link, and the best way to do that would be for me to be able to download or upload these files to somewhere in the city, as opposed to they're sitting on my server right now.
Yeah,
And I completely agree with you. It's the interactivity that lets you kind of look at this stuff. We'll have to resolve that. I'm happy to do that.
So right now, we can't go to these maps.
You could look at the URL, but I can't. It's not even. I think I leave that up to the committee.
It's not public, the public, or neither us, have access to these maps.
Okay.
So I guess what you're getting at and what others are getting at is, how can we? And I guess,
Where do you put it?
yeah, Mr. Halley will have to
We're gonna have to talk.
work,
We're gonna have to talk to, we talked to the IT department to make it available to you. In the meantime, though, I would suggest this, Mike, if you're willing to do it. If you go ahead and look at what's in here, because there are cuts and all in here. If you have other splits you wanted to look at, this, take on this data, if you had that ad hoc, you could give it back to him, and he could probably turn that around, assuming the data is available. Makes sense to you? Yeah.
Yes, and that would be helpful when this does become permanent, because some of this, if there's more useful maps or something you want to see, that would be useful as well.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Councilor Wright.
Did you, Mr. Halley, did you do this, you said you used Claude with this?
To build the user interface, everything comes straight from data, so it's auditable.
Yeah.
It's what?
Auditable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All set?
Yep.
I know, Councilor Kelly, you had hinted that you wanted to say something earlier. Do you want to?
I think I understand that really tonight is a listening session.
Yeah.
And I will come back to your committee to tell you my thoughts.
Okay, all right.
When you're hashing it over, I don't think tonight is
Okay.
the time to do that.
All right. Does anyone have any other comments or questions directed towards Mr. Markowitz, Mr. Halley, or the working group?
I just want to reiterate how grateful we are for all of our
Oh,
work.
yeah.
You've really given us a starting point, because it was really overwhelming. But I think the hardest part of any project is the starting.
Absolutely.
And you have given us a start.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a huge.
More than a start.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate
The
it.
ability to influence the outcome. The leverage model goes like this, like a hockey stick. You know, you get it right at the start, you're fine. If you don't, you'll never figure it out.
Yeah, thank you.
And appreciate the data.
But I'll also say with respect, so everybody on the group really contributed. You know, everyone wrote. You know, essentially at one point a lot of the stuff got fed into AI to make a report cranked out. But the source material, I think everybody in the group wrote at least a couple of sections. Mike did a lot of work on the data, obviously, but so it was kind of a collaborative thing.
Ms. Fairley, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Chris said about the way the consensus went and the priorities. So the disability and the last option of automatic was pretty high consensus in our group. And like I said, Brookline does it. I believe Watertown does it. Waltham doesn't even have an overnight ban. Those are similar cities. And the other thing is just to clarify about the placards, yes, there is a slip to cover your face. But if you're covering your expiration date or the registration number, you'll get a ticket because that is not allowed. And so, and by the way, these placards are not assigned to a car. Okay, they're assigned to people. And so that's, you know, a person, a picture, their name, and then, you know, like I said, and their disability, but that's in the RMV database. The other thing was, you know, the snow ban, I mean, the ban isn't going to solve plowing because the snow emergency obliterates anybody parking anywhere of any of these exceptions. Okay, you are not allowed to park on the street. Somehow, maybe you pull into the end of somebody's driveway just desperately when you get a snow emergency, which a lot of people do. So just to keep that in mind. And if you look at the time frame, there should be no ticket before 3:01 a.m. and no ticket after 5:01 a.m. So what you're talking is 2 hours. You know, maybe 3 tops, but really it's a very small window. And there was a pretty good consensus, even if Chris did not vote for that, on the 2-month ban, because that's 2 months of less. I think originally everyone wanted to try to eliminate some hardships for people. Disability is one of the biggest hardships. But there's also, as we put it all in that report, that you really need to look at what steps should we do, 1, 2, 3, and we give that idea there, you know, as much as we could to help you get started and to consider things that don't require a whole lot of implementation. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fairley. Any other comments before
Somebody else.
No.
Okay.
Anyone else before I try to wrap this up for tonight?
Mitch.
What?
Mitch had his hand up, I think.
His hand's down.
lowered it.
He lowered it.
All right, it's still down. Oh, Mr. Fishman, did you want to say something? Oh, there you go. All right.
I did. Thank you. Appreciate being able to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate being able to participate, and you know, Chris and Mike and Jeannie really said a lot of the things that I agree with. The part that Chris said didn't quite make it into the report is this question of selecting streets and how to pair the streets, perhaps you know, density with non-density or lower density areas. And I think there's obviously going to be a lot of options when you get to that issue. You know, I think what we all think is that the disability side of it will be sort of an initial approach, and it could be, I think, as discussed, expansion of the parking lots, the availability closer to people's homes, with perhaps private lots as well. But the question about selecting of the streets, if you get that far, that's a tough one, and that's a tough one because if for example, we were, it was sort of looked at, Nantum is perhaps a higher dense area, an area that would have a need. It also has probably narrower streets, maybe even more parking restrictions than some of the other neighborhoods in the city, maybe even resident parking restrictions. And I think the council, your committee, will invariably get into how to select a location if you're going to do a trial that's going to accommodate your objective. And then again, there's always different options. One of them, was this issue about having neighborhoods actually, as they do in traffic council, get 10 taxpayers or 10 property owners and submit something. That may actually not work. It may be too small. If it's an area that's in real need, there may be insufficient spaces on the streets. And my own opinion, it may not be the opinion of everyone, is that the committee is going to have to look at the question of size. And I sort of viewed it when I spoke about the issue as maybe pairing up a neighborhood of need with a neighborhood adjacent that's not as needy, so that there's sufficient area for people to walk within a reasonable distance to actually park their car, knowing that maybe their immediate street has too many restrictions, or as Chris said, too many opportunities for cars across the street from one another, blocking out a FedEx or an Amazon truck, that kind of thing. So those are my thoughts, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this committee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fishman. Mr. Cleaves?
I just think it should be noted for the record that this was outside the scope, but that Mr. Fishman's comments were outside the scope of the working group's report. I think we've all been pretty careful tonight to only present comments that were, either subjected to discussion in the working group or that were part of the working group report. And I just want to say that this was a bit outside of the report, just again for the record. But thank you all for putting us on the committee, and it's been an honor to serve.
Okay. Thank you. Well,
boy, we did talk about this.
All right. So, couple of things before we wrap up. We are going to need to meet in August, and earlier this summer I asked that everyone send me the dates Monday through Thursday that you cannot attend either in person or on Zoom. I think everyone sent me dates for August except Councilor Silver. I didn't do it on the spot, but I did. You don't have to tell me now, not now, but if anyone has any updated schedule plans for August that you cannot make a meeting Monday through Thursday, please let me know.
I think I told you I had no restrictions.
You two are gonna have to take this outside.
All right. So just in terms of the schedule, where I see this going, I would like this committee to have some sort of, close to final framework of where we want to go through straw votes by the end of August. That way we can have a public comment meeting in September, and we can present something to the public in September. And then we can vote on it at the end of September in committee. And then it would go to the full council, hopefully by October. That way we would be in line to have something implemented by December 1st. And yes, I am well aware of your comments, Mr. Roach, Councilor Roach, from before about the January 1st. But That's where I see this going in terms of the schedule. Questions or comments on
Good plan.
Let's do it.
Good plan, yes.
that? Okay.
So that's
Well,
one
how-
meeting that we have to have all this together, because we're
Well-
only meeting once in August.
We may have to meet more than once in August, but again, I will. Councilor Block.
How do you envision involving the police?
We will have
DPW,
to,
other-
we will have, well, depending on where we go. If for example, if we want to do, if we can find a way to do school parking lots, yes. DPW needs to be involved in that conversation, and we would need to bring in, I guess, the commissioner or Terry Crowley or Ned Cobb. I don't know who we should bring in, but someone who oversees the plowing operation. And we would need Captain Devine, yes, we would need them at the meetings. So they would say, you can do this, you can't do that.
Okay, because I think there'll be more situations than just the school parking lot.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Everything you do everything you do in implementation, you're gonna have to involve, right? My advice would be call COO Morse.
Oh, yeah.
ASAP and tell them what you're gonna run by them.
Yeah.
And it's because some of this stuff, not to be negative, but some of this stuff dies an early death. You don't want to be dealing with it 2-3 weeks from now. You want to get it off the dice now, or maybe I shouldn't say die early death. If something is going to say, no, we can't do that right now. That needs more work or whatever. At least these are the things you can do now as opposed to then and all that.
Yeah, anything that.
But
Can I
the city-
suggest that we have this discussion in our first meeting? I think this is the kind of stuff that we have to do is the logistics planning.
Anything that we want to implement, we need buy-in from city staff.
I would almost have him at that first meeting with us.
Who's him?
Mr.
Morris. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Earlier the better.
Yeah,
Do we need to vote?
Yes.
we're taking one vote tonight.
Motion to hold.
Councilor Roach has made a motion to hold. Any further discussion on the hold? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, 7-0.
Motion adjourned.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 9:25. Good night.